Hi, grade 4. Here's some more Wolf Hollow. Lily, my mother said sharply. You think Annabelle shouldn't hear such things? I agree, Sarah, but you're the one who thinks she belongs here at the table with the adults. I'd like to know, Constable, has it occurred to you that the two of them are together somewhere? Betty, his prisoner? The constable sighed. Of course it occurred to me, Lily, he said, and I've already called the state police so they can start looking for him or them. Such talk shocked me deeply. I had never thought that there would be such a thing. I was beginning to agree with my aunt about one thing at least. I think I will go back to bed, I said. My mother gave me a sad little smile. Good girl, she said. And maybe you and the boys should stay home from school today. You're tired, and nobody will be paying much attention to their schoolwork with all this going on. Another shock, since my mother had never suggested that thing before. We had to be pretty sick, or there had to be a blizzard raging for Mum to keep us away from our lessons. I nodded, okay. I tried to go back to sleep, I really did, but I couldn't stop thinking about what my Aunt Lily had said. I couldn't imagine why Toby would want to take Betty with him. Make her his prisoner? She was a nasty girl, and he knew it, and for some reason Aunt Lily and even the constable thought they might be together. I was sure they were wrong. And I feared that I was the only one who cared as much about helping Toby as finding Betty. My parents liked him, true enough, but a missing girl was a missing girl. Nobody else was likely to put Toby ahead of that. I laid in my bed and I tried to admit that Toby had left our hills. But to have taken the camera, to have left without saying goodbye, without even some small remembrance to let us know, to let me know that he was sorry to be leaving. I could not believe that. I was convinced that Toby had not left after all, that he was right where he was supposed to be, right where the police would be able to find him as soon as they went looking. And I asked myself, in the face of this possibility, what I was prepared to do about it. I dressed in the dark, adding layers so I could stay out long in the cold. I crept down the stairs. When I peeked into the kitchen, I found that my father and the constable were gone. Mother was at work at the sink, her back against me, and there was no sign of Aunt Lily. I crept into the mudroom. I aptly named, given the amount of slop that we all tracked in over the past day, carried my boots to the door, pulled them on from the threshold before I stepped into the wet, and quietly closed the door behind me. Anyone who's ever gone from warm and bright to cold and dark knows how I felt. To my back, all things safe. Before me, a night, not as black as it appeared through the windows, but dark enough. The sky overhead, clear now, no clouds to whiten the darkness, precious little starlight, and no moon at all. The trees bowed to one another as if to dance, making their own sad music, and I was suddenly filled with misgivings. I'd been out the night before many times, but never alone, and not past the end of the lane. Still, as I hesitated, my eyes adjusted to the night, and the darkness paled some. And it would be morning soon, and I knew where I was going. Toby's shack was in Cobb Hollow, below the Glengarry place, on the other side of the hill from Wolf Hollow, away from the schoolhouse, set in the woods, not far off a dirt lane that I had walked many times. It wasn't too far, and there wasn't much between here and there except the woods. I didn't like the thought of the bears, but I'd seen only one, and it had scampered away at the sight of me. Sometimes people talked about a mountain lion in the area, but not for a long time. No more wolves around here, and I really wasn't completely alone. With me, out there in the dark, were men searching for Betty. I would have been careful to stay out of their way. If they mistook me for her, they would deal everyone a terrible disappointment and me some trouble. So I kept to the woods, following the deer trails, careful in the slick leaves. I knew my way simply by heading down the hill. It was difficult to get lost in the hills, since every hollow had a lane or a proper road running through it, and alongside a house now and then, each one of which I knew. When I reached the ground, I took the dirt road toward Silas Cobb's old place. I didn't see a soul, but once or twice I heard people calling back and forth in the distance. The burned out foundation of the cob house was set back in the trees far enough so it was not visible from the road, but there was still a passable lane and a crooked wooden post sign that said Cobb to mark the place. The lane was marshy, the trees on either side were bent overhead, making a tunnel that dripped and trembled in the wind. There was no sign of a clearing where the Cobb house had once stood. It was entirely swallowed up in bramble. Off to one side of the lane, the trees had grown up and through the foundation, but they were thin enough that the sky showed above. And I could tell from the suggestion of the blue in the black that the sun would soon be up. And I paused there. I heard something new. It wasn't the wind, nor was it the sound of the searchers in the distance. It was more like an animal sound, a call of some kind, I thought, not an owl, not a fox. Most ground animals and brooding birds keep quiet at night for fear of attracting attention of predators. So whatever was making that odd noise had no such fear. I heard a porcupine once or twice, a blend of tooth chatter and whine, mixed with the mild bleat of a bike horn with a leaky bulb. This was the sound, something like that. And I was suddenly frightened. I'd seen a dog once, its nose bristling with quills, and I had no intentions of tangling with a porcupine. But as I stood there, the sound stopped. I listened for it, but all I heard was the wind. Toby's shack was just another bit ahead, behind a stand of thick trees and ivy. He had kept the area around it clear, and I could make out a stump with an axe in it. And I thought, unbidden, of King Arthur's pulling Excalibur from the stone. At the door to the shack, I hesitated for only a moment, the word prisoner rising in my mind before knocking. To my astonishment, something inside moved. It made a noise. I stepped back away from the door just as it opened. And there was Toby. We'll leave it at that. Have a great day.